Hey y'all, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be a spoiler-free and a spoilery discussion all about our July book club pick, Dreams of Savannah by Roseanna M. I'm excited to film this video because I have a lot of thoughts and I've been really wanting to get this out in a video. I just finished this book the other day. I enjoyed it. I did give it 3.5 stars, but I have some thoughts about I love some things and then I was bored with some others. So let's go. So, I gave this book 3.5 stars, and let me just tell you first what this is about. This is about Cordelia Owens, and she's in love with Phineas Dunn. Phineas Dunn is going off to war, and she is eagerly awaiting his return. Unfortunately, due to some crazy circumstances, an accident has delayed him where he is unable to get home, and people fear the worst. They fear him dead. They don't know. They're just kind of in that waiting period, and in the meantime, Cordelia's life is pretty much crazy and a lot of things are happening for her. Everything's kind of up in arms back home with her family, and she's eagerly awaiting for Finn to get back. So their name's Cordelia and Phineas, but we really have shortened names of Delia and Finn. So that's pretty much what the whole premise of this book is about. We're in Savannah in Georgia. This time period is the Civil War time period. There's a lot of dialect in this. So I listened to this on audio. I do have the physical copy, but I ended up doing the audio version just because I had a crazy busy month and wanted to go ahead and try to get this read. So the audio, the narrator was phenomenal. Like, honestly, anytime you have a southern setting and you have a narrator who can just narrate that dialect very well, I appreciate that. So I love the narrator. I highly recommend that you do the audiobook if you read this book because of the dialect and the way that it's written. Some people may have some issues with the way that it's written, just trying to understand what they're trying to portray and try to speak and all of those things. So, yeah. Like I said, the narrator was wonderful. And this is just like your kind of like that. You see this several times in stories where there's a wartime, girl loves guy goes off to war. Is he alive? Is he dead? Is he coming back? Will they get married? Won't they? What's gonna happen? So that's what this story premise is for the most part about. So thoughts, spoiler free right here. Okay, this is all still spoiler free. I will let you know when there are any spoilers or anything, but Dreams of Savannah, I felt like this was really well written. I feel like Roseanna M. also researches history very well, so this is very historically driven. If you really like in-depth Civil War or wartime novels that have a lot of that political intrigue or that have historical backgrounds and just very in-depth details there, you would like this most likely. Sometimes I struggle with that kind of jargon. I call it jargon. It's just very long-winded for me at times, almost info dumpy, hard to just stick with. So in this book, I found myself loving the southern setting, obviously, and most of the characters. However, I just didn't feel any attachment to our main character, Delia. I felt like she was just whatever, you know, there really wasn't anything special about her. Like, her thoughts were a little unrealistic. She wasn't memorable and just didn't have a depth for me. There just wasn't anything special about her at all for me. She seemed like she was like not in touch with reality sometimes, and she was just like there. Like there just wasn't anything that I was in love with. She was just fine, you know. I really liked the main character, Finn. I feel like that Finn went through some really hard things in this book, and he had a crazy journey in the war, and he had a challenging time, and his character just had a lot more depth than Delia. He also has a spiritual transformation, and I really appreciated that. I didn't really necessarily care about his relationship with Delia. I could have like taken that away. Like, you didn't even have to have that. I didn't need that, you know, like that was fine. I mean, I didn't care. I just really didn't care whether they got back together or not. So, it wasn't anything special to me, but I liked him as a character and seeing his journey. One thing about this that I didn't care for is I feel like this book was just too long. Like, this was almost 400 pages. 380 something pages. 392. So this book is 392 pages, and I just felt like as I was listening, I found myself tuning out. What did they say kind of thing. Rewind or, oh, just keep going. It's fine. I feel like if this book was 50 to 100 pages shorter, then it would have helped it a lot more than it did. I feel like there was just a lot of details about the war and just on and on and on. And I was like, let's go, you know? So yeah, I feel like this suffered from being a little bit too long. I still like this book though, like 3.5 stars. My favorite parts in this book. I feel like Luther and Selena were my favorite characters in this story. I loved them so much. Like, I could have a whole story on Luther or Selena. Either way, I just, each one of their journeys, I'm here for them. So that's part of why I think I was like, oh, I just love them so much. And you know what? Maybe even if they were not in this story, but you know, I wouldn't have realized how much I didn't care for Delia. Does that make sense? Like, I loved Luther's character depth so much. He was such an important character for me. Loved him, just everything about him. And then Selena, everything with her was wow, that was amazing just to see what happens there. So I really like those characters. Those are side characters in the story. I really loved like his responses about slavery, and they were just such powerful statements. Other items I really enjoyed in here are the faith content. I feel like there were some really great quotes. I will mention those in the spoiler section, but I feel like this book had some really great faith content. We could obviously tell they're Christian. There were some prayers, scriptures, everything. It was wonderful. Definitely discussions about God. So I love the faith content in this. So I really connected with that part. In general, this book was just fine. 3.5 stars. I did talk a little bit about this already in a vlog. I'll link the vlog if you haven't seen it, but I enjoyed some of it, and I was bored in some other parts. So, yeah, I felt like the story just moved overall kind of slowly. The book could have been a little bit more short, and I just wasn't as invested or engaged as I have been with some of the other Christian historical romances. So that's my whole spiel on the spoiler-free section. I think Roseanna M. White does write very well. I am going to continue to read some of her books. I've got several of her books on my shelf. I've got Shadowed Loyalty, and I have got A Name Unknown, An Hour Unspent, The Number of Love, A Portrait of Loyalty. So I've got like 5 books of hers on my shelf. I still need to complete two or three of the books in the series there, the ones I just mentioned, but I still want to read her books. I just think that this one just wasn't the best book I've ever read by her. When I look at the reviews on Goodreads, I think a lot of people have felt the same. So yeah, like I said, 3.5 for me is like, I enjoyed it overall. There were some things I didn't care for, some things I enjoyed, some things I didn't care for. Probably would recommend it to a specific group of people, but would definitely not reread. So yeah, not my favorite of all time, but still pretty good. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about some of the spoilery section. If you have not read this book and you don't want to hear any of the spoilers, go ahead and click off now. But if you have read this book and you want to go ahead and listen to me talk about some of my spoilery thoughts, let's go. So my first thing I want to say is the faith in this story. Let me get my phone and I want to read y'all for my review. And I've highlighted a lot of things. So the faith content, y'all. So Finn is talking and he says, I've wanted, Father God, you know how I have all my life seeking the next great adventure. And I think he had some more dialect there, but I did cut that out. But I don't want all that anymore, Lord. I just want to be in your shadow. Help me want what you want. And that was a great reminder of the Lord's will for our life. And just to, Lord, if it be in your will, these are the things that are in my heart. Make the things that are in your will be in my heart. All of those things. Loved that. So I feel like she had some really great faith content here. Several items throughout the story that I enjoyed that were like that. Luther and Selena. Okay. Luther. Let me get to my notes because y'all already know. When Phineas and Luther are talking about slavery, Phineas, I'm going to tell you right now, he learned real fast, okay? Phineas says to Luther, we are not all monsters just because we own slaves. And Luther says, and we are not all beasts just because our skin is of a deeper hue. Honey, I mean, Luther, he was a really intellectual character. I loved everything about him, y'all. Like, he cared to help Finn, and I like that, like, while he's helping Finn, he's saying, like, would you have done the same thing for me if the tables were turned? And it made Finn really think, about that. Like, would he, you know? And so he really comes to care for Luther, and I liked that about that whole thing. I really enjoyed seeing that. It's almost like he kind of transformed in his thoughts about the slavery and about who Luther was, and he didn't care about what anybody else thought. He was going to start to help him. I love that. That was great. So that's why I say I could have a whole I could have a whole book on Luther, because he really was a little sweet bean in my heart. So later we find out about Selena, that's her sister. Like, seriously? I was like, oh my goodness, I did not see this. Like, unless you know, listening, and maybe I missed something, but I didn't see it, because there was several times I tuned out, I'll be honest. But you know, I kind of got the overall what was happening, but there were some, like right there in that first 100 pages, I was like, I'm struggling, you know, with some of this, but it's okay. I also really didn't care for, like, her cousin. What was his name? Julius? I don't even remember his name. Her cousin who's wanting to, like, what's his name? Her cousin who's, like, wanting to marry her, and there was all that drama at the end. What was his name? It was kind of crazy. So we had a little action. It was okay. Yeah, Julius. I don't love when that stuff happens. I'm like, okay, I get it. But you want to put a little action in here, but it was whatever. I mean, he was kind of showing up throughout, and he was so just, you know, dead set on marrying her, and, you know, that Finn wasn't going to be with her and all this stuff. And the dad was even, like, involved. But then finally the dad realizes, okay, he's not a good guy. So that worked out. But, you know, and I just kept feeling like we were just, like, with, as far as, like, Finn and Delia, I felt like we were just waiting for them to be together. And then when they finally were, there was, like, no real relationship. It was like, oh, we can't be together. You know, like, oh, we're together, but we can't be together. You know, and, like, this whole thing of, like, gotta wait. And I'm not a patient person, so I was like, okay, come on, let's just do this. You know, I get why she was doing it, because of all the issues with, like, land and the war. I totally understand. But I was just like, okay. So, what else? I'm all over the place with this. I'm just, like, having a discussion, I guess. I feel like this book was, like, really hard to rate, though. Like, I mean, 3.5, you know, it works, but it's not memorable in any way, you know, other than Luther and Selena and that whole story, Luther trying to find his love, and then, you know, you've got Selena, and there's a little romance with her, and them trying to run away and get to where they can be together. Yeah, you know, it's like, I feel like this story was pretty authentic for the time, but, which I don't know a whole lot about history, so who am I to say? If you know, let me know if you've read this and you know yes or no, is this pretty realistic? I honestly don't, but it just felt like it was. But at the same time, it's like, it was so hard to read sometimes. Like, there was so much description, so that's why I feel like this really should have been 50 to 100 pages shorter. And I guess I just didn't really root for them, like Delia and Finn. I just didn't root for them. They were just whatever. And yeah, I don't really know that I have much else to say. What do y'all think? I don't even know if this is a bunch of spoilers, but except for a couple of things. You know, I mean, I think that Luther and Finn's friendship was very important. I loved their friendship. But just the romance was whatever. I really could have had a whole book on Luther. Like, I really could have. Like, that would have been top tier probably, but these others was just kind of whatever. So yeah, sorry I've kind of repeated myself, but what did you think? If you read this book, let me know. I know we kind of picked a few, like, in between books this year, just not really hit that 5-star yet, y'all, so not for me yet. So I'm excited about August, though, where we're going to be reading a book of the Bible. Everyone's got the Bible, and we can all just read our Bible in August instead of, you know, going through a fiction book. And I'm really excited because I think that will really encourage a lot of us to get back into our Bible reading. If you haven't seen my video announcing that, I will link it in the card. But I hope that a lot of you all will participate with us, and we can discuss all about that at the end of August in my video where I'm talking about Galatians and everything. But this book was just, it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. You know, that's the best way I can explain. You know, I didn't really feel any attachment, not invested. 3.5 stars, though, because of a lot of the details with the other characters that I did enjoy in the southern settings. So, yeah, that's all I really have for this video. Sorry it's kind of all over the place. I really wanted to go ahead and film a review for this the best I could. And I do have like a full discussion, like a full review on Goodreads, but this pretty much reiterates a lot of what I said on there. So yeah, I hope y'all are having a great day whenever you're watching this. Let me know in the comments below if you've read this book. It's kind of one of those, or a lot of people were in the middle here from what I saw on Goodreads, but there are some that really, really loved it, 5-starred it. So let me know in the comments below if you have read this book and what your thoughts were, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, y'all.